happy, really happy to be with you, happy, really happy to be with you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the NFT morning. This is John Karp, and I'm super happy, excited to talk with you today, because we have the chance and the honor to have Anna Ridler with us. Hi, Anna. How are you?
Hi. Good morning.
So I'm super excited because for people who's been following digital art the last few years, you are a total legend, as we say in this space. You've been pioneering a lot of topic actually that we really love at NFT Morning. We are big fan of blockchain as a medium, and you've been experimenting, playing with this. The same, you've been playing with AI, training your own models before everybody was talking about LLM or whatever. And we have the chance to have you because you will be in Paris next week. Actually, it's going fast. It's going fast. Next week for Paris Photo. And so for people who don't know, we are doing a series of episodes dedicated to Paris Photo, where we have the chance to have most of the exhibitors, and so you will be part of Nagel Draxler Gallery show basically next week. So Paris Photo will happen from November 12th to 16th, if I'm not wrong, and Nina Roer, she's curating 13 different booths there, and all of the for the third year in a row there are these big, basically the most important photo art festival in the world. Photo Art Fair is happening in Paris at Paris Photo, and for the third year in a row they have a section dedicated to digital art. So here we are, Anna. I mentioned to you, I think it's really interesting because you will come to Paris Photo with something. I think, just tell me, because I think it's pretty hybrid. I'm even not sure that there are NFTs involved in your there are some NFTs or not?
There are some NFTs, but it's going to be a mixture of kind of different works of some early AI projects that I've done. So things back from 2020, when I was working, because I've been working with machine learning and AI for now the best part of a decade, which feels like a very long time, and I've seen it change dramatically. So kind of earlier work from there. I'm also bringing a NFT project, which is, it has this kind of hybrid digital physical aspect to it. And then also another work, a newer work, where I'm exploring some of the incredibly large databases that kind of sit behind these latest models, which is going to be tokenized, but not in an interesting way.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, and I think so we will talk about this work, and I would love to know a bit more about what we can expect also for people who will visit it, because of course we love digital art, but experiencing it in the real world, in a show is something special.
It's so important, I think, because I think as it becomes easier and easier and quicker to produce an image or to produce a video or to produce something, I think the experience of how art is presented and that kind of that experience and the kind of labor of making becomes more and more important, I think, for its perception as artwork.
I see. Yeah, of course. And also, I think it's interesting because the eyes you have on works, I think it's interesting, because I have this story from my I think it's my mother-in-law, actually, that was not sure that was working in the art sector. She has a background as an artist, and And at the moment she saw it on World, she said, okay, now I understand it's art.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about perception and how it's presented that kind of changes people's interpretation of it.
So yeah, no, so we will talk a bit more about it, but I think it's really interesting, as your background and your personal story, is bringing you that, and a part of it will be showed in Paris. But I just wanted to start maybe, I would not say with the beginning, but basically, yeah. When have you started to play? With digital as the medium for art, basically?
So I've always been interested in how technology works. And I think that kind of very early, I was interested in kind of thinking about how technology works, but not necessarily using technology. And then I think I slowly started teaching myself how to code. I taught myself how to kind of program and build. My original degree was in English literature. So I didn't have any formal technical training or artistic training.
How do you move from English to computer engineering?
So it's actually, I think, a lot of it is to do with data and big data, and by extension, data sets and machine learning, because the way that I was kind of taught to do English literature was that it was a very weird course, but you basically were given the entire span of the English language and then just told, go and find something interesting. And then you'd have to find something and kind of connect it all together to kind of create an idea and then articulate that idea. And yeah, also, like everyone's written on Shakespeare, like you have to think of something interesting to write about Shakespeare. Like, so you have to really it teaches you how to find things and kind of thread them together and to come up with your own idea and to come up with a way of looking at the world in a way that I think was really, really, really formative to me. So it sounds like it's very unrelated, but I think it really taught me how to kind of be comfortable having masses of information and finding a common thread and finding things and connecting things together that might not necessarily be connected. So that's kind of where I started off. I taught myself how to code, and then I started working in more and more technology into my artistic practice and into kind of thinking through these ideas, because I've always been interested in not just kind of producing an image or an output, but I've been really interested in the process of making. So the other thing that I do is I will do everything myself. I will find all the data, even if that means growing plants so that I can photograph the plants so that I can have the data. I will kind of build my own models. I will train my own models. I will work with the eventual output to kind of create the work. And one of the things that I love and I found very opening and freeing about working with machine learning is that because it is such a complicated process and there are so many different parts to it, because you've got the training data, you've got the model, you've got the code, you've got the output, it allows you to kind of interrogate kind of quite big ideas and to kind of get these separate kind of things that come out from it. So, for example, one of the things that I'm most well known for is the work that I've been doing on tulips, which I started back in 2017. So I originally created my own data set. I took 10,000 photographs of tulips. I bought all of the tulips. I was based in the Netherlands at the time. They all thought I was this like crazy English lady going to the flower market and just buying up all of the tulips every day. And one of the things that kind of like, it's a very physical process. And I did this when I was working with GANs, which at the time you needed about 10,000 to get something pretty decent to come out, which obviously has changed dramatically. When I started working on this project, the best image that you could get, the most high def image that you could get was 256 by 256 pixels. So I was training SynGANs back when this project first started. And I was really into there's an obvious parallel between Tulip Mania, which was a moment in the 1630s, where the price of a tulip bulb went to being the same price as an Amsterdam townhouse before crashing to being the same price as an onion. It's the first known speculative bubble. And at the time that I was making, there was, this huge kind of like
crypto bubble or something.
Crypto bubble, and the parallels with, people. I wasn't the only one to make this comparison. Like the European Central Bank was also making this comparison, but also it was the start of the real AI bubble too. When you start to get kind of these huge salaries for machine learning, all this money being pumped into it. The AI summer was, it was just the start of the AI summer. So there's this kind of combination of the kind of
you mentioned that which year did it, like 2018.
2018, yeah, kind of like that time, it's just started to be this thing. It started to get reported on in the news. There was all this conversation about, will AI take, this actually a very similar conversation to now about, what makes a machine creative. And I started working on this project. I used my training data, my training set that I then became an installation in its own right. It was a very early kind of like examination of data sets. I was lucky enough to be included in a Barbican show in the Curve, and it's toured kind of like throughout since. I used this data to train a model to generate artificial kind of tulips, but these tulips were controlled by the price of Bitcoin. So they respond they kind of change shape and appearance when the price of Bitcoin goes up. So I basically created a very fancy Bloomberg terminal of this work, this video work, which kind of showed the price of Bitcoin kind of shifting throughout time. This work is called Mosaic Virus.
Okay. Wow. You're it's a lot.
It's a lot. I know. I make these very complicated projects.
No. It's amazing. So just, because I was still digesting, the first project you mentioned, Myriad. So because, basically you've been doing everything by yourself. So even the pictures.
Yeah.
So you've been.
I was there like in my studio taking them every day. It looked like either a beautiful florist or like a dustbin when they started to decay. And there's this real physicality of doing this yourself, like carrying thousands of tulips is heavy. Stripping the leaves of them is, like it hurts you. Like there's the kind of scent of them, blooming and then decaying. Like it was a real physical experience doing all of this. And then when I had taken the photographs, I also had to, because at the time I had to categorize them, because I had to give them labels, because the algorithm didn't know, it doesn't know what red is.
Which kind of labels? Is it like colors?
So I used color, I used state, because there was a bud, was it blooming, was it dead? I used how stripy the petal was, because at the time of tulip mania, this kind of this moment in history, the most expensive tulips were the ones that had the stripe in them, because people didn't know where that stripe came from. You would have a white tulip bulb, and then suddenly one season it would give you this, red stripe. It turns out it is the eggs of an insect that gets laid in it, which causes a virus, mosaic virus, which is actually what I titled the video work that I made. But yeah, so I did a lot of work around categorization and labeling and language, which also I think
it was really the way about thinking also, but at this time, I would say what people were calling big data.
And also thinking about kind of labor and the human kind of the human kind of decision making, the human chain of decision making that sits behind AI. Because at the time there was lots of kind of it kind of like was AI, like it would come off the kind of magic AI tree, and when really it's a human process with humans kind of coding, with humans making that data, and that there are errors in it. And on the installation, I'm looking around to see if I have any samples left still. Sometimes I would kind of cross out, I would disagree with myself, like I would say that something was red one morning and then decide it was pink later, and kind of like working out that even something as simple as a flower, how fallible language is, and how there are these kind of states where, you don't really, these kind of like liminal, kind of not liminal, but these kind of boundary states where it could be one thing or it could be another, and how difficult it is to be precise. Because I think this is another thing about working with technology and code and being an artist, is that you have to have kind of these two very different states of mental states in your head at once, because you have to be, when you're coding, you're aiming for absolute precision and zero ambiguity. This is this and nothing else.
Yeah,
But
it's
when
a zero one system. It's yes or no. It works when you compile your code. If you have a mistake, it will not work.
You're constantly being like trying to like make it as precise as possible and no ambiguity. Whereas I feel like as an artist, you're trying to put as many meanings, layering these meanings, creating this kind of state of kind of like ambiguity as possible. And so you have to kind of have these very two opposing ways of kind of working and hold them simultaneously when you're creating a project, which is exhausting, but also fun.
Yeah, no, that's I think it's interesting because artists are looking for the limit also, ambiguity in some time, or asking the question. I believe, on one hand, you bringing the answers when you are coding because you say you need to do this, but as an artist, you're more here to raise topics. And
I think that's one thing that I think comes out a lot that I've realized kind of comes out in my work more and more, is that I will create these incredibly precise systems that sit behind the work, but visually they're obscured because you're just looking at a flower changing, and you can't, unless you kind of like spend a lot of time watching it and understand a bit of the concept, you don't understand that accuracy that is kind of controlling it.
And so the system actually, of this flower, I think also, this concept of tulip, changing the state depending on the Bitcoin value, it was, I think, it's really like, again, when we think about doing this in 2019, it was really like, we're talking about a moment where basically NFT is not a thing.
And then, so after this project in 2019, I also made my own. So these kind of projects were kind of like thinking about Bitcoin, thinking about the crypto space, but not explicitly in the crypto space. So after I made this work in 2019, I decided to make one that kind of like put itself into the system. So I made a project called Blumenveiling in 2019, where I built my own website, auction website, and I built my own. Well, I built a lot of things. I created a custom smart contract and made like 100 incredibly short videos of tulips. And then over the course of 100 days, I did an auction a day. I also built bots, so you weren't sure if you were bidding against a human or a bot to kind of auction off these tokens. And the smart contract controlled the length of time the tulip would be available, because you could only kind of access them through the Blumenveiling auction site. And so they would last for a week, and then they would become blighted and you would no longer be able to see them. So like adding the decay and impermanence of the natural world back into these systems. Also, you were not able to see the video that you would buy until you bought it. It was pixelated. So there was only like a week of the owner being able to view the artwork, and I've made a lot of projects since that kind of also, using custom smart contracts, control, decay, obscure how the artwork can be viewed. And it's really just to kind of take it out of these systems and to kind of give it and make it this kind of like little thing that just like one person can appreciate and enjoy, and to trying to kind of bring kind of, I suppose, stillness and to kind of stop it being traded like an asset, and to kind of, yeah, kind of like think about that. And then, so that was kind of, yeah, that was an earlier NFT project that I made. And then I still with the tulips, I made another one.
It's really, yeah. But again, okay, I don't want to insist, but doing this again in 2019, because actually now we saw from 2021 a lot of things, where, okay, playing with what you can see, what you're discovering, the what everybody can see was only the owner can see, what but playing with this concept at this moment is really like, I think you found a really something interesting by playing with the blockchain at this time. What was
Yeah, I think one of the things that drew me to it is, again, it is a complicated space. It's not an easy space to work in. And in 2019, it was like, I feel like it as a space, it is kind of solidifying around certain kind of protocols and certain kinds of kind of chains and but at the time it was just like everything. It was deeply complicated, but I think also very interesting, because it a bit like machine learning, it's kind of like at this kind of cusp, this kind of like and this real kind of like moment of kind of like being able to explore and experience before everything kind of becomes locked down into like an official kind of like official, but like a more usual way of doing things. And I think like it just kind of peeling that back, and that's why it was really fun. Fun is the wrong word. I would say intensely stressful. But to kind of build all of this infrastructure ourselves, because I worked with David Fowl on this particular project to kind of build the site, build the auction.
Yeah, because it's at this time it's still, actually, it was really a technical challenge also.
It was a real technical challenge. It was really hard. It was not easy, because we both were like, this is like the perfect use case for doing this. Like it will be, we can definitely do this. And then it turned out to just be like horrendously difficult. But also like in that kind of like, it's like doing a marathon when you're just like, this is awful. Why did I agree to do this? Why am I doing this? And then when you're finished, you're like, this is amazing. I love it.
It's like, you say never again, never again, never again. And then when it's online, you say, okay, what's next?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I did take a bit of a break from the tulips, but I did my latest one that I did was, which is a couple of years old now. So I feel like I'm due to make another tulip project, but I made another one called the Black Tulip, which is also involves two interlinking kind of custom smart contract, and again, its own kind of dedicated auction site, where I made a moving image GAN generated piece of a black tulip. Black tulips famously are impossible to grow. And it's the name of an Alexander Dumas novel, widely considered to be his worst novel, about how kind of like it's a moment of speculation because someone grows a black tulip and all this kind of stuff ensues. But I made this website, which means that it is impossible to sell the work for more than you bought it for. So it's an anti-speculation token. So that anyway, and I think what's like interesting about kind of like thinking about this is that you either are speculating on ETH as a whole, you believe that it's going to go up over time, or you can kind of get around the kind of contracts and the kind of things that I've put in place by working outside of the system. So you can kind of offer money, kind of like you can do a transaction away from off-chain, or kind of like not directly on the kind of like official website, or on the official kind of like place. But that's kind of it's like reintroducing trust. You have to believe that someone is going to like pay you, and that the other person will like send the token afterwards. So again, like the things that I'm most interested in this space aren't necessarily kind of it's like the systems that kind of govern it and the kind of norms of behavior, I think, are really interesting, and how all of these things work. And so that's kind of part of a wider kind of body of work that I've been kind of doing around making tokens that are really difficult to trade or sell, which my gallery love me for, but I just think it's really interesting, because I made like ones that you can only trade after 200, 400, 800 years, which again are thinking about really like, this is first of all, will this technology be around for that amount of time, thinking about deep time in relation to technologies, around people kind of like treating the work, but buying the work because they love it, not because they think it's going to like go up in value. And again, there are ways of trading it. You can just put it into a like a wallet, and then just like sell the seed phrase to someone else, and kind of like transfer it that way. But that's also, you still will have the seed phrase. They have to trust that, and like all of these things, like I think are just really interesting. I recently made a project where I've got these tokens that are shells, based on a model that I trained based on shells that I found along the River Thames. And these shells kind of like are controlled by a smart contract in two ways. They're only visible at low tide, because the Thames is a tidal river. And you can only trade them at low tide. So you can only trade them for like short amounts of time, twice a day, but you have to look at them to work out if you can trade them or not. So again, it's like bringing attention back in, trying to stop these things being traded as assets and more being kind of like markers of something else.
But we can see the common point is everything for you is your vision with data, basically. So how you play with data, how you switch data, how you use it as a setup of the setting that could be permanent or not, for your work.
I think
human can be part of it or not. So that's
it's very much that. And I think it's also like trying to make something that is also visually quite pretty, because like a lot of my work is kind of like it's pretty, and I think I think there is a friction there between kind of like having something that is like quite conceptually complex and visually pretty that is interesting, that kind of doesn't necessarily kind of like go together.
I think it's the key, actually, because you have different layers of reading in the work also, because of course, the first thing you see is the visual, and the emotion. It starts first, with looking, and we saw these tulips, that we've been generating. Yeah, the aesthetic is it there, and that's the first layer, and then the emotion is generated by what you understand from that, the mechanism, the complexity, actually, and in a way, I think it's a good balance, because you have some on-chain works, that are great also, but maybe more complex because visually not appealing. I don't know. I wanted to start examples, but I don't know. No, even actually Pack, I love Pack in a way, but it's really minimalist in a way, and so sometimes you can just watch a black dot and they say, what the hell, is it really art? So you need to have both, and the more it's complex, actually, the more it should be pretty for me. And so what can we expect to see in Paris, basically?
So in Paris, I have one kind of, I would say, kind of on-chain work, which is a project that I did, I think, a year and a bit ago, which is called Slowly Fading Quietly, which is a series of 3 Polaroids. I have a test print that you can kind of just see up there, and these were kind of printed on the last kind of like, there's one place left in the world that will print large format Polaroids, and there's a finite amount of film stock that kind of will work in the large Polaroid camera, and so it's very experimental. Like it's you kind of get these kind of weird blobs and kind of things like that happen with it, because it's not Polaroid film is not stable anyway, and this is even more unstable. So I have these 3 Polaroids that kind of are a triptych, and I scanned them, and then there is a so the kind of and I've made like an online version, but the online version is a version that is fully faded. And basically the idea is that over the course of kind of a decade, the online version fades into the kind of scan of the original Polaroid that was taken when it was printed, and the Polaroid version will fade into kind of like nothingness. So they're kind of like mirroring, or not mirroring, but they're kind of like one's going forward and one's going back, and they're kind of like eventually they'll meet in the middle. And
Yeah,
so
it's a dialogue.
it's question, you know, like what is the artwork? Where is the artwork? You know, is it the online one? Is it the offline one? And
so
how does, you know, like where does the stability kind of like in these systems lie? So that's one work that is going to be shown. Another
one of them will age naturally, and the other one will have the Benjamin Button syndrome and going back in time, right?
Yeah.
Can you just show us 1 second with your camera up a little bit?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're all kind of like this was kind of like the AI generated where they were fine-tuned on scans of flowers that I had in my garden. So this is a summer one, that's hollyhocks. And then I have an early one, early kind of GAN art one, which is a project called Circadian Bloom that I made in lockdown. Where I kind of like, there are certain flowers that have chronobiological clocks, so they will open and shut at fixed time of the day, regardless of whether they're in a basement, not seeing sunlight, or, you know, like out wherever. So like morning glories will always open kind of like at the morning, night blooming cactuses will always open at night. Whether, you know, it's a cloudy day, whatever, like they'll still behave in this way. And this was a phenomenon that was first noticed by Carl Linnaeus in the 18th century, and he wrote this whole thing about plants that behaved in this way. And gardeners have been obsessed by this idea, but it's impossible to kind of grow a clock because these plants kind of like open and shut at different times of the year. Like they need different kind of soil types. They grow in different like places around the world. All of this stuff makes it really, really tricky to actually grow one. So I decided.
What are the data that are used, you know, to make them change? What is it?
No, like the data that kind of like makes them like open and shut is their kind of like, it's their cells. It's like how they're it's just like how they have kind of like genetically kind of like developed and evolved. So like if you look at California poppies that also famously do this, California poppies, these are there. They kind of like, if you see them in the morning, they'll be like this tight rolled shut bud, and then like they'll open during the day and then they'll shut again at night. And it's they think it's to do with the types of kind of like pollinators they want to attract will only be around at certain times of the day. So they've just kind of like developed this hyper specific way of kind of like flowering, so that they're just flowering for when they need to. And it's like, it's really kind of like interesting that this happens. And it's also like, it was very difficult to find a list of plants that kind of displayed this behavior, because it's not something that kind of like is often noted down scientifically. It's kind of like this useless piece of information. Not useless, but, you know, if you look in dictionaries or kind of encyclopedias of plants, it tells you like what color they are, you know, the soil type that they need, when the seasons that they'll bloom, how much sun they need, but they won't say like if they open at night or not, or if they kind of like display this behavior. So I actually had to talk to a lot of scientists and botanists to kind of work these things out. And so yeah, it's a clock where I have these AI generated flowers that kind of, that it's programmed to use the kind of the clock that exists for each flower to kind of open and shut wherever it's run. So if it's being run in, say, Sweden, which will have kind of like super short days because it gets dark as quickly, you know, like there'll be a fixed amount of daylight, and it will kind of like work out kind of like when dawn and dusk is, and like then start to kind of like get the flowers blooming at the different times. If it's programmed like closer to the equator, much longer, much shorter dusk and dawn, it will kind of like reprogram itself so that it's showing the right flowers at the right time of the day. And yeah, that's an older project. That's not an NFT that's going to be on show. And
So it's a
then
lot, but how many pieces will be shown?
so like and then so that's going to be, and then I'm going to also show just some drawings and diagrams that I've been making of different mentions of irises in Lion Bee, and how
Okay.
ridiculous kind of like some of that is. So I think there's going to be about 3 pieces on show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's really exciting. And so you just to have also the bigger picture. So um, you're collaborating with Nagel Draxler
Yeah.
Gallery. I think they do. If I'm not wrong, okay, it's less your stuff, but if I understand, they have like not only you.
Yeah.
It's kind of a duo show or
Yeah.
something.
So it's going to be me and Martha Rosler, who is this big conceptual artist who's been working for, you know, many, many, many years, thinking about kind of, you know, ontologies and kind of capturing things and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, and also photography and videos, installations, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but, and I was just wondering because we know a lot of solo shows by galleries or some group shows that are more or less consistent. But when it's do you see any? Do you see any? Did you get any? I don't know. Do you see any connection? I would say with both work, or it's totally different.
I think what has been interesting about working with Nagel Draxler is that they're primarily a conceptual art gallery. And I think it's been nice to kind of like see how they've been connecting kind of different artists who work in this space to kind of like these kind of like older conceptual artists from like the 60s, 70s, and how there is that lineage, you know, like there is this kind of like to kind of place them into kind of like, or connect them into different movements in art history, I think has actually been really nice. And kind of thinking about the kind of that aspect kind of like in this kind of like duo with Martha, it's like it's nice to kind of think about that my work isn't just about kind of technology. It's actually kind of more broad and kind of can connect and kind of there can be these echoes with someone who has been doing this for a really long time.
I see. So yeah, they have one feet in both worlds in a way.
Yeah.
And they how do they, because you are in, also you are recognized in, I would say, in both world on your hand also. How do they consider you as a, yeah, they see you more like as a geek digital artist, or what is it?
I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, I consider myself to be a geek digital artist. So I think, I don't know, I just feel like I'm just me. Like
Yeah.
I make the work that I want to make, and
No, yeah, of
I
course, of
do
course.
the things that I like, and then
No, but that's interesting, and I think, yeah, I really can't wait to see and have their eyes also. I think that their eyes on it, because it's really the space where you can play with these kind of galleries and really have a hybrid and physical and digital exhibition is this kind of area.
yeah.
What you have you already did you have you came already at Paris Photo? You've been there already?
Yeah, I was there a couple of years ago in 2023. I did a collaboration with Sophia Crespo, who is someone that I collaborate with frequently. She is a very, very dear friend of mine. And we did a piece with Mimi.
Mimi Nguyen. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something. Yeah, I think you can find it, and it was also something pretty strong.
We made a ginormous cyanotype, which then, and with kind of accompanying NFTs for each tile, and some of which actually were in the Toledo show very recently.
Yeah. Okay. Last summer. Okay. Yeah. So that's yeah, and I can't wait, to see how it looks like. It's been like it's always something pretty experimental, and for the first time, actually, you will be exhibited in the new area of Paris Photos, so the real Grand Palais, because I think before it was a Grand Palais éphémère, and the space is just crazy. I think it's something, that just working there, it's an experience. So I really wanted to recommend people, to go through this and to visit also, basically the Nagel Draxler booth. Of course, if people are interested, also we will share the information about the gallery, if they are interested to know more and maybe to see the catalog and all the information. And so you will be in Paris also, Anna.
Yes, I will.
Amazing. So no, just really thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
It's a big pleasure. It's really, really, really excited to see what will be shown there. And for people following NFT Morning, I just wanted to let you know that we have more episodes coming actually about Paris Photo. I think the next one will be okay. Beforehand, we have another one actually that will be on about Crypto Stamp Corner, a Crypto Stamp Association that is created. So it's basically also digital twins, physical and digital, but for the crypto, the stamp world, the traditional world of stamps. And then the next episode about Paris Photo will be with Anita Bakers and Rolf Art and Giulietta Tarobella, so from Rolf Art exactly. And so it will happen in a few days. So I will invite you to follow this one also. Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you.
Have a great day and good morning. Happy